has received a UN award. So which UN award did it receive? Let us try to understand this in more detail. So Major Abhilasha Barak, she has received UN Military Gender Advocate of the Year Award of 2025. This award is given because of her role in the UN peacekeeping operations. She served with UNIFIL, that stands for United Nation Mission in the Lebanon. So we'll look also in the map where actually she is serving. So United Nation Mission in Lebanon, and she was there honored, okay, and she will be honored at UN headquarters because she has received this award. International. Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In this video, we are going to discuss about. Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In this video, we are going to discuss about the topics that were in news in geography and internal security and challenges in last week. So first of all, if you look at the first topic, it is related to a news where Major Abhilasha Barak, who is a member of Indian Armed Forces, she has received a UN award. So which UN award did it receive? Let us try to understand this in more detail. So Major Abhilasha Barak, she has received UN Military Gender Advocate of the Year Award of 2025. This award is given because of her role in the UN peacekeeping operations. She served with UNIFIL, that stands for United Nation Mission in the Lebanon. So we'll look also in the map where actually she is serving. So United Nation Mission in Lebanon, and she was there honored, okay, and she will be honored at UN headquarters because she has received this award. International Day of UN Peacekeeper. Every year, United Nations celebrate this day on 29th of May. So it is on this day in the UN headquarters, New York, she will be honored. Now let us try to understand when we talk about this particular mission of UN and where she is attached. So she, as we have discussed, is an Indian Army officer and she is commander of FET. FET stands for Female Engagement Team as such. So we know that UN peacekeeping operations, they are sometimes divided into two parts. One, you have to understand, to have a gender-based understanding. So you have male counterparts and female counterparts. So female engagement team, and there she is heading the Indian battalion. So for example, when you look at the composition of UN peacekeeping forces, they are divided based on country. So entire border can be handled by forces, peacekeeping forces from different countries, each having their own battalion. And also she is the first woman combat helicopter pilot of Indian Army. That makes this award more interesting. Prominent woman military leader, we can say. That's how she has served in Indian Army as well as now in the UN peacekeeping operations. Now, if you look at the jurisdiction of UNIFIL, so as we have seen that it is a mission largely focused on the Israel-Lebanon border as such. This also is many times referred as blue line. Blue line is how on the map the Israel and Lebanon border is represented. So all the way from the west, where you have border along the Mediterranean Sea, and further to the east, we can see up to here. This is the overall jurisdiction of UNIFIL. And now along this map, if you look, you have peacekeeping forces from different countries like Korea. Then you have peacekeeping forces from European country. You also have forces from Indonesia, Malaysia. Then you have Italy, you have Netherlands, right? And then apart from that, also Spain you have. And if you look on the easternmost side of the UNIFIL border, blue line, is where the Indian contingent is deployed. So this is one of the largest contingent in India, the largest contingent of UNIFIL, as around 680 plus soldiers of Indian military are serving under the UN peacekeeping role. Now, key contributors which she has made, key contributions, if you try to understand which she has made, for which she has been recognized with this honor and award, is because of her community outreach program. When she is deployed and she is carrying out operations in the Israel-Lebanon border, she has played a stellar role in engaging with women and girls who are living in these areas. So one of the major objectives of peacekeeping forces are to ensure that violence can be reduced and minimized, and overall people along the both sides of border are able to live peacefully. And many times whenever you have a war or confrontation like situation, one of the major effects of this can be seen on the marginalized section of society where women and girls are caught in the war. So she has played a role in engaging with them, and also for the other members of forces, she ensured that they are trained with a gender sensitization approach. Also, because of her continuous interaction with the local community, local people, especially female section of society or population, it has strengthened the local trust in the entire UN operation itself, and it was seen that UN forces were getting a lot of help and support from population as well. And thus, this particular role she has played during her tenure can be considered as the one where the promotion of inclusive peacekeeping, which is one of the major objective of UN peacekeeping operations, has been fulfilled. The significance of this award can be understood from the perspective that UN is also trying to ensure that peacekeeping operations do not just remain and restricted to the domain of ensuring peace along the border, but they also help in the overall growth, development, and ensure better quality of life for people living along the border. And this is only possible if the forces are also gender sensitized and are gender responsive in nature. Women, peace and security agenda, which UN has also put forward as per its resolution of 1325, is being fulfilled by such kind of actions taken by such officers. Empowerment of women, obviously, it has led to an enhanced mission effectiveness as far as the entire UNIFIL operation is concerned in this particular regard. Now, if we try to understand India's achievement in this area, so first of all, she has become the third Indian recipient of the same honor. Before her also in 2019, Major Suman Gawani, and 2023, Major Radhika Sen, and finally in 2025, Major Abhilasa Barak. She has become the third recipient of this particular award, and this award, which has been received by 3 officers till now of Indian Army, is clearly a reflection of India's strong UN peacekeeping role. We know that UN basically does not have a force of its own, and that's why it depends on forces from several different countries. So forces from all across the world generally contribute in this. And here we see India has since long time been the largest contributor of the personnel as far as the UN peacekeeping operations are concerned, whether it is in the Middle East, whether it is in the West Asia, or even in many countries of Africa as such. Similarly, there is a kind of South Asian dominance as far as the UN peacekeeping operations are concerned. Countries such as India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Bangladesh, they have contributed significantly in achievement of in ensuring that such operations become successful in nature. Now, if you look at the award itself, award was instituted in 2016, and the award was instituted by the Office of Military Affairs that work overall under the Department for Peace Operations in the United Nations. It recognizes gender advocacy in peacekeeping and also promotes gender equality in the UN missions and such. So that's the significance of this particular news. Second news relate to the recent article published in Downtown, where they have said that the echoes of Chambal are silenced by illegal sand mining. The issue is related to the illegal sand mining that is continuously carried out along the banks of river Chambal, which also has been declared as sanctuary, National Chambal Sanctuary, and this is something which Supreme Court has taken cognizance of and has given a strict directive to ensure that such harmful mining practices can be minimized and controlled. So if you look at the background of this particular news, Supreme Court of India has recently raised concern over the illegal sand mining practiced by mining mafia across the bank or river banks of Chambal River. In this regard, it has issued a direction to the government of 3 states, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Now, why 3 states? Because Chambal River is a river that flows through 3 states of India. It originates from the Madhya Pradesh, where you have Vindhya range, then flows across the Rajasthan, and then finally flowing through the state of Uttar Pradesh, it joins river Yamuna. See, it is a direct tributary of river Yamuna, actually the longest tributary of river Yamuna. And that's why all the 3 state government have issued direction by the Supreme Court. They have to take into consideration the problems and challenges faced due to this illegal mining. Mining has reportedly damaged the Chambal River ecosystem, which is a very vibrant and we can say biodiverse ecosystem supporting large number of animals from a small to large size. And most importantly, if you look in the Chambal River, you will find gharials. Gharials are also classified as critically endangered as far as the IUCN classification is concerned. So saving their life becomes very vital if you want to ensure that gharials do not become extinct in the future. And apart from that, other aquatic species such as dolphins and all also are found in this river. All of them are facing issues because of sand mining. So let us try to understand first what is sand mining. Now we know that sand is one of the major components for the construction purposes, and that's why many we can say individuals, organizations, group, they are engaged in the extraction of sand and other similar kind of rocky fragments such as gravels also from the river beds, from the coast, as well as even from the dune areas. Now, these are very valuable minerals and materials we can say, because they are essential raw material for construction sector. I know that India currently is witnessing a kind of construction boom, especially driven by rapid urbanization. That's why demand of such sand is quite higher. And this is the reason why excessive mining is being practiced in many parts of the Indian rivers or coastal areas, which exceed the natural replenishment level. Now, what does it mean? If you look at the river itself, so river generally in the central India or in the northern India originate from the mountain. So Vindhya range in case of Chambal, right? Now imagine Chambal is originating from the Vindhya range, and while flowing across Vindhya range, it causes erosion. Now when the rocks are eroded, that's when sands and gravels are produced. So the erosion of the rocks in the mountain system continuously produces these sand and gravels, and the river then carries them along their path, along their course, and deposit them along the banks. So there is a particular rate at which erosion and deposition takes place. But if the mining overall exceeds the rate of replenishment, that means the amount of sand and gravel deposited in the river bank would reduce as such, and that is what result in the massive environmental and geological damage to the entire river topography, entire river geomorphology, as well as the ecosystem as such. Illegal mining operates without proper approval. That is the problem, because mining is of legal nature also. That's where government gives order that this much amount of mining can be done, this much amount of sand can be extracted in this particular time frame. But if the mining is of illegal nature, there is no control of government and security forces such. That means these mining mafia, sand mafia can extract as much sand as possible without worrying about the ecological, environmental consequences of it. That's why illegal sand mining poses a significant threat to such kind of ecosystem. Now, causes of illegal sand mining, if we try to rapidly understand, first of all, I told you the construction boom which we are witnessing is driven by rapid urbanization, as many cities of India continuously are expanding. Not only that, many villages and settlements are transforming into cities as such. You have now limited space in the larger cities, and that's why a lot of multi-storied buildings are being constructed. So all of these require rapid, large amount of sand. Not only that, even the infrastructures, such as example, you have the infrastructure such as roadways infrastructure, railway infrastructure. All of these require some kind of these kind of materials as such. So there is a huge demand supply gap in construction sector. The demand of sand is much more higher than what can be supplied through the legal channels, right? Any illegal operation, why it comes into picture? It comes into picture because there is a gap between supply, high demand. There is a huge demand and supply gap, as we have discussed in the construction sector. And also illegal mining is preferred by many of the mafias and organizations and individuals, because they can reap huge profit. Why huge profit? Because they want to mine sand legally. They have to pay a lot of royalties, they have to go through government clearances, which takes a lot of time, and that's why they prefer that legally they can excavate sand, sell it in the black market, and have huge profit. Also, these mafias are propped up due to the lack of enforcement or weak enforcement by security forces. There can be instances of lack of or weak lax monitoring mechanism in these areas, and slow adoption of alternatives. For example, why construction industry require a lot of sand? Because alternatives are not being used by this sector in large volume, like manufactured sand. M sand can be one such alternative, where the sand or the particles used in the construction sector can be manufactured artificially, and thus reducing the dependency on natural factors. So these adoptions, though they have come into picture some in 2014-15 itself, so 10-12 years have passed, but still adoption is very poor in this regard. Governance and policy challenge definitely are there, because many of the reports have clearly highlighted a growing nexus due to the possibility of earning black money that operates, where sand mafias, politicians, and even officials are linked together. So officials turn a blind eye under the pressure of politicians, and it is in this vacuum sand mafias are able to operate with impunity. Lack of manpower and surveillance technology. For example, even many times when the government officials and department is willing to crack down on such kind of illegal mining, they face lack of resources and personals. That's why the supervision or enforcement of this provisions of the law becomes very difficult here. Weak accountability as well as monitoring systems, inaccurate district survey report that also create challenge. where exactly mining is going on, where exactly sand mafias are operating, and poor transport tracking and regulations. So these are some of the government and policy vacuums, we can say, where the sand mafias are able to operate. Impact of illegal sand mining. First of all, what happens if you are able to extract sand at a rate greater than at which river can replenish it, it will definitely result into the erosion. Erosion means removal of particles, sand particles, gravity particles from the river bank. And as the river bank erodes, the habitat that these aquatic animals enjoy becomes smaller and smaller, and this overall result in less breeding and also result in the loss of aquatic biodiversity. Not only that, the river flows in a particular channel, and this channel is surrounded by the deposited particles as such. So if you are excavating more and more sand, it can also alter the river flow pattern. It can cause a deepening of the river bed, and that means there is a water scarcity, or there will be a flood-like situation if there is a very heavy amount of rainfall. Not only that, as river is not able to basically replenish groundwater, it can also create problem in of water scarcity. Flood risk already we have discussed will happen. Plus, the infrastructure that you have along the river, such as the bridges, embankment, and any other kind of infrastructure, they also can face severe damage whenever you have the large scale mining as such. Now, regulation of sand mining in India, if you look, there are several acts. First of all, it is called as a minor mineral or classified as a minor mineral under MMDR Act, that is Mines and Minerals Regulation Act. And minor minerals mean that these sand particles are regulated not by central government but by the state government. So primarily it becomes a kind of state subject. The state many times are able to bypass or find lacunas and loopholes in the law and then allow these sand mafia to operate. Now, as far as the environmental impact assessment notification of 2006, it mandates environmental clearances for any sand mining to be prohibited. Sustainable sand mining guidelines also have been announced by the government, which promote scientific mining. That means mining can continue without adversely impacting the aquatic ecosystem or the overall entire river morphology. Monitoring guidelines 2020 also has been given, which uses drones, satellites, and barcoding to understand the impact of mining and how to protect the this river bank and river area as such. But all of these mainly exist on paper in many areas, as the enforcement of all these regulations and rules seem to be missing, where the sand mafias and the illegal mining keeps taking place. Now, let us try to understand about the National Chambal Sanctuary, because that's where Supreme Court has raised concern about the illegal mining. So it is a tri-state protected areas we have discussed before. Chambal River passes through Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and UP, and in 78-79 itself, it was declared a protected area. Overall, it covers a vast stretch of land, about 5,400 square kilometer in the aerial spread, and the Chambal Sanctuary is known for pristine river ecosystem as well as sandy bank, because large volume of water is flowing across Chambal River that causes massive erosion and massive sand deposition. From the perspective of aquatic life, Chambal supports gharial ecosystem, gharial, dolphin, turtles, skimmer, as well as even mugger crocodiles. So now if we talk about the gharials, Gavialis gangeticus, these are fish-eating crocodilian of freshwater river. Very important to understand. These gharials live in the Chambal River, so they are adapted to the freshwater ecosystem. Scientific name of this gharial is Gavialis gangeticus, and IUCN status I told you in the beginning, they are critically endangered. That's why any threat which Chambal River faces can directly cause reduction in the population of this gharial, and if it is not controlled, situation goes beyond control, we might see gharial becoming extinct from India as well. Many such animals we have seen becoming extinct from India and all across the world because we have not taken stern action in time. Protected under Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act 1972. This is the highest level protection that government gives to any particular animal under this act. Schedule 1. Chambal River is its most important habitat in India. That also makes it obvious that we we have to take measure to ensure that the gharial is not able to go extinct. Their ecosystem, their habitat is we have to ensure that their habitat remains preserved and protected. That is the second news. Third news is related to National Conference on Agriculture for Kharif Campaign 2026. This was a campaign launched by the Government of India, and obviously because it is related to Kharif. So first of all, you talk about Kharif. Kharif is referring to a cropping season where the crops are sown during the summer month, right? and then they are harvested during the winter months. So that season of cropping is called as Kharif. As opposed to Kharif, you have Rabi season where the crops are sown during winter, harvested during summer. And somewhere in between them sits Jaid season. Jaid season refers to time duration of 2 to 3 months between summer to winter. That's where you have the growth of watermelons, you have the this what you can call as cucumbers and all this kind of species as such. So this was a Kharif conference organized by Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. The conference was conducted for 2 days and took place in the New Delhi, that is the capital of India. Focus was on Kharif season 2026 preparedness, because we are in the month of June and this is the month when the Kharif crops are basically sown by farmers and they keep waiting for the monsoon rain to come. That also helps in the growth of these crops. Participation of states, Indian Council of Agricultural Research Scientists and the farmer producers organizations was seen in this particular conference. The vision of conference was simple, that is to strengthen India's agricultural growth. Though we know that when country grows and this goes on the path of development, the participation of manufacturing sector and services sector grow, but still even in today's India, agriculture contributes significantly, whether it is from the perspective of GDP growth or from the perspective of the employment rate as such. Not only that, it also provides food security to billions of people living in India and other parts of the world also, as India also exports large amount of food grains. Now, if you look at the 2026 food grain production, as per government record, we have achieved a historical food production. Why historical? Because till date we have never achieved such a high volume of food grain production. So today it sits at 376.563 million ton. The last year, if you compare 24-25 agricultural season, we have seen increase of 18.8 million tons from that year. So we have increased our food grain production by almost 90 million tons, you can keep in mind. Highest ever food grain output in India. That's why 25-26 becomes a very significant year from the perspective of agriculture, and 26-27 government obviously would want and ensure that this number does not go down, rather it go up as such. Now, improved productivity and policy support is cited as one of the major reasons why we have been able to increase our food grain production, especially in the context that the area under agriculture is continuously shrinking. If you look at the last 50 years of record. Now, this food grain production that we have achieved is not only vital from economic perspective, but as you know that India today is the most populous nation in the world, we have to ensure food security for all our citizens and residents, and that can be done only if we are able to ensure this record, ensure this growth as such. Now, if you look at the major crops that India produces, the two major staple crops that we produce is rice and wheat obviously. So in the case of rice, we have produced about 154 million tons of rice. Now, not only this number is important, but also we have now become the #1 rice producer in the world. Till last year, China was the leading producer of rice in the world. India stood at the second rank. Now we have overtaken China and we have become the largest producer. If you talk about the second staple crop which is grown in relatively smaller areas because of the climatic consideration, and that is wheat. In wheat also we have achieved a record production where the 120.657 million tons of wheat grain we have produced. If you look at the global ranking, India stands second in the wheat production. Third is the maize, which is also grown in dryland areas. There we have achieved production of roughly 55 million tons. Globally, our rank in maize production is now 7th. So rice, wheat, maize, these are the major crops where food grain production is seen to be continuously increasing, and India is improving its this rank as well. It strengthens overall global agricultural position as far as India's position is concerned. Apart from that, if you look at the other kind of crops such as oil seeds and pulses, which also is a vital part of our staple food, our daily consumption habit. Total oilseed production of India stands at 43 million tons. Now, obviously, compared to our demand, it is very less. That's why we have to depend upon imported oil for cooking purposes. Here, rapeseed mustard oil was produced to a tune of 13.768 million. Groundnut oil that contributed to 13 million tons. Historic highs in oilseed production we have seen as well. So, rice we have reached historic highs, oilseed production we have reached historic highs, and if we are able to maintain our momentum, the import dependency that we have today for oil seeds, that can be reduced, and then we can become self-reliant as far as the edible oil production and consumption is concerned. Now, the government's focus is clear because agriculture is mainly a state subject. Center has illustrated that its role is mainly of a facilitator and coordinator. So, cooperative federalism is a model which central government wants to follow in the agricultural sphere of the economy, and that's what we are seeing here. That's why government also is promoting unified team agriculture. Now, team agriculture is a model which is floated by the central government, where government wants the collaboration between the state agricultural departments that you have, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, which is a major scientific and research organization as far as agricultural system is concerned in India, and the food producing organizations. Such all the we can say all the members of these organizations and the officials of these organizations should come together and create team agriculture, and the focus of this team would be to ensure inclusive agricultural development. This is what central government is aiming for. Apart from that, also government's focus is shifting from the chemical agriculture, pesticide based farming to more of natural farming. Natural farming means where the soil health card and balanced fertilizer use would be promoted, where the use of chemical fertilizer would be reduced and finally would be completely eliminated as such, and mainly there would be integration between the livestock and agriculture sector, farming sector. For example, the cow dung, cow urine and various other kind of waste material being generated in the village areas can be used as a manure in the field as such. The ecosystem that thrives around the farm can be used to control and manage the pest attack against the crop as such. And as the world is witnessing a global warming and climate change related phenomena, our objective should also be to grow farming practices in such a manner that they are able to become climate resilient. That means the impact of climate change on agriculture sector can be seen to be a minimum extent. Implementation of the Agriculture Infrastructure Fund and the Pradhan Mantri Asa Yojana. Asa Yojana basically was focused on ensuring that the income of farmers are ensured even in the bad cropping season, even when natural disasters take place, even when monsoon rainfall is deficit in nature. So, I of the agriculturalist community, farming community should be ensure that they are able to get minimum income so that they do not have to face difficulties in ensuring their basic ensuring their basic facilities as such. Digital agriculture and farmer IDs are going to be the next topic where government is trying to we can say next area where government is trying to build up momentum. So that is about the Kharif conference. Next topic is related to Supreme Court reviews Wetland Rules 2017. So when we talk about the Wetland Rule 2017, before that Wetland Rules was given in 2010 and 2017 rule made several changes. Now first of all, let us try to understand that what is the background of this entire issue. So Supreme Court of India has examined the constitutional validity of the Wetland Rules 2017. A petition actually was put in front of the judges of Supreme Court which challenged the exclusion of human-made or artificial wetlands under the Rules 2017. So if you try to understand about wetland, these are the water bodies where majority of the soil, we can say, remains covered underwater for extended duration of time, at least for a year as such. And generally when you talk about wetland at a global perspective, from the Ramsar Convention perspective, wetland can be anything. It can be man-made, it can be natural, it can be permanent, it can be temporary. But in India, the wetland rules that were brought in 2017, it is believed that they have weakened the environmental protection that is given to the human-made or artificial wetland as such. Also, the issues are linked to the conservation of ecologically important wetland, because petitioners argue that if this rule is to be implemented, majority of the wetlands that we have in India, which is of human-made nature, artificial in nature, they would lose protection which they enjoy under the Wetland Conservation Rule as such, Wetland Conservation Act as such. And this also contradicts and is in conflict with the international convention of which India is signatory of. That convention is the Ramsar Convention. Ramsar, as you know, is a city in Iran. So on 2nd February 1971, a Ramsar Convention came into existence, which India later on signed. And the Rule 2G, for example, of this 2017 rule, it is allegedly inconsistent with the Ramsar Convention of 1971. Why? Because again, Ramsar Convention protects all kind of wetland, whether they are natural or artificial. But Rule 2017 rule excludes this particular type of wetland. It covers permanent and temporary wetland. and petition claims violation of the international obligations under Ramsar Convention will take place if 17 rule is not revised. Now let us try to understand about the risk to Ramsar site. So exclusion cover drinking water, irrigation, and aquaculture. That means if the wetland is being used for these three purposes, then the aspect of conservation is diluted there. Also, if wetland is being used for salt production, many lakes we have in India, such as, for example, if you go to the western part of India, you have Sambhar Lake. Sambhar Lake is used for salt production, as well as recreational water bodies. If it is being declared by the state government as such, then they lose protection under the Wetland Conservation Act. Now, from number perspective, if you look, total today, we have 94 Ramsar sites in India. Out of that, petitioners allege that 39 of these sites may lose protection and then will be free to be exploited for the parochial interest, for the narrow interest of the government, of the companies and the organizations and such. And thus there is a concern over reduced conservation safeguard. So that's why the petition was put in front of Supreme Court. Now there is a principle of non-regression also has to be followed here, because 2017 rules allegedly weakened 2010 protection granted by government to the wetland. 2010 framework included both tanks and reservoirs. No matter whether they are natural or artificial, they will enjoy protection. An example of this we can see from the perspective of Harike. Harike actually is a man-made wetland, but it was provided security, it was provided protection actually under 2010 rule, and 2017 rule is trying to dilute such provision. Covered irrigation structures as well as artificial wetland, that was with reference to 2010 rule. And environmental safeguard should not be diluted. That is the general principle we have to follow. We should not regress back when we're talking about the environmental conservation, when we're talking about the wetland conservation, and 2017 rule is exactly trying to do so. So that is also one point which petitioners have put in the front of court. Now the question is related to decentralization and concern around it. First of all, the power of identification, whether a particular water body can be declared as wetland or not, is shifted to SWA. Earlier it was in front of state, central government organization as such. Now it has been shifted to the state wetland authority. The authority of CWRA, that is Central Wetlands Regulatory Authority, it has been removed. And also there is no explicit list of prohibited activities anymore, that what even if any water body is declared as wetland, what actually is prohibited, what exactly is permitted as such. And because of these changes, petitioners argue there is a risk of declassification for development project. For example, if any development project, infrastructure development project is passed around the wetlands, the conservation of wetland can be put on the back burner and such projects can be given a green flag. Now, judicial precedent and mapping standards, we try to look here. We can clearly see that petitions has cited a case that come in 2017 in front of India in Supreme Court, that was M.K. Balakrishnan versus Union of India. As a final verdict in this case, Supreme Court has clearly directed that all the mapped wetland of India should be provided protection cover. It does not matter whether they are natural in nature or artificial in nature, whether they are permanent in nature or temporary in nature. But 2017 rules focus more on classifying wetland on the basis of origin rather than their function. So if wetland is of natural origin, they will be given protection. If they are of we can say artificial origin, then protection would be diluted in nature. And that's why it also conflicts the ISRO wetland mapping standard, because when ISRO maps the wetland across India and provides them marking and number, they clearly map all kind of wetland, whether artificial or natural as such. So because of all these conflicts, again with reference to the Ramsar Convention, international convention, with reference to 2010 rule which will allow aggression to take place, and with reference to the earlier Supreme Court decisions or verdict also, this 2017 rule seems to be against the spirit of all this, and that's why petitioners have asked Supreme Court to take action and direct government to ensure that all kind of wetlands are protected no matter whatever is their origin. Then coming to last topic, we have post-quantum cryptography. The post-quantum cryptography, also called as PQC. So recently, Department of Science and Technology constituted a task force, and it has recommended phased adoption of PQC in India. That means to ensure digital security of India, cyber security of India, post-quantum cryptography should be as soon as possible in a phased manner adopted by critical infrastructure at least. So critical sectors, which is, for example, power sector, you have the healthcare sector, education sector, military. These sector, if they want to protect themselves from the future quantum computing threat, they cannot do so without taking PQC in their, without adopting PQC in their security architecture as such. Critical information infrastructure transition has to begin by 2027. Priority systems should be migrated to this system by 2028, and then DST task force stated that we should aim for full adoption of PQC by the end of year 2029 as such. Now the question is that why we are focused on post quantum cryptography? What is the need of this? Need of this is if we try to understand how our current cyber security architecture works. So modern digital security, for example, rely on PKI, that is public key infrastructure. So whether you are talking about the banking sector, government sector, military, internet system, it is largely controlled and secured by PKI, that is public key infrastructure. And all of these are basically encrypted databases. And current encryption depends upon hard mathematical problems, which is very difficult to be cracked and solved, and that's why no one can crack the code and can look into your personal data if it is stored in any of these systems as such. Now the problem is that these hard mathematical problems cannot be easily solved by classical computer, and that's why no matter whoever is trying to hack into systems, they would not be able to do so if they're using classical computer. But what we are seeing today in the world is the rise of quantum computers, and there is a growing risk that quantum computers are more than capable enough to break the existing encryption. So a hacker which is using quantum computer, a cyber criminal who is using quantum computer, can very easily access the confidential information which is placed in the banking system, government system, military and internet system, and that can create havoc and make cyber security systems more vulnerable to the cyber threats. So quantum threat to cyber security is a growing threat in the coming future, and that's why fault tolerant quantum computers poses major security threat. Shor's algorithm, basically Shor algorithm was given by Shor, and the algorithm is able to crack the current PKI, public key infrastructure cryptography, on which majority of our security system is based upon, and that's why cyber hackers can easily access information such as related to banks and digital transaction, and that can create financial turbulence in the life of people as well as in the economic sector of the government. This government and military communications also can be made public, and that can threaten the national security of any country as well. Endangers digital authentication and internet security. Now we know that many times when you provide some information, many times when you validate your credentials and all that, you sign e-sign, right? These government officers are also using e-sign, digital sign and all that. Why? Because they are trusted in nature. So it is possible that digital signatures can be carried out, digital authentication can be carried out even by other persons, non-sanctioned person as such. So all these are the coming day challenge which we may face in the future. Now what is post-quantum cryptography? So it is also many times called as quantum resistant cryptography. So it is nothing but a kind of adaptation. When the challenge grow, you also have to evolve and ensure that this challenge does not threaten your security system as such. So it is designed to resist quantum computer attack. Again, try to think. Today we are using PKI. Why? Because classical computers are being used these days, and they cannot crack the PKI. Tomorrow quantum computers can crack PKI. That means you have to shift and standardize and make your security system more advanced. That's why you have to definitely shift to PQC, that is post quantum cryptography. So it will ensure that against both classical as well as quantum computers, our data systems are secure, foolproof. Reason is because it uses complex mathematical problems and it does not require quantum hardware as such. That is the benefit of quantum cryptography. If you look at the PQC versus quantum cryptography, PQC provide mathematical security. Quantum cryptography is on the other hand based on quantum physics. PQC work on the existing network. Quantum cryptography would require specialized infrastructure, and PQC thus offers easier deployment as such. And if you look at the major foundations of PQC, briefly if you look, first is the lattice based cryptography, one of the foundation of PQC. Second is high dimensional lattice problem, that is basically being solved here. Most promising and widely adopted approach is this one. Support encryption, signature and key exchanges, and also code based cryptography uses error correcting codes also. So these are 3-4 major foundations we can find as far as the PQC is concerned. However, many countries across the world are also using other approaches of PQC. Some of the other approaches apart from lattice based cryptography is multivariate polynomial cryptography. Where you want to crack the code, where you want to access the system, you have to solve multivariate polynomial problems. Similarly, these are used for digital signatures mainly. Second is hash-based cryptography that uses hash function. For example, the OTP system through which we are able to verify credentials of the individual is based on hash functions. For example, when you put your user ID and password to access your banking platform, bank send you code. This code is in the form of OTP. Again, you put the code and then it verifies that yes, you are the individual with access to mobile number where this message has been received. So this entire system is based on hash-based cryptography. Highly secure and mathematically well understood and prepares India for the quantum era. So the DSTs, if you talk about the task force suggestions, should be taken into consideration seriously, and we have to evolve to ensure that our cyber security system is foolproof against both current as well as future challenges, future threats. Now, if you look at few of the questions from these topics we have discussed, first was with reference to UN Military Gender Advocate of the Year Award, which was received by Major Abhilasa Barak. Consider the following statement. Major Abhilasa Barak received 2025 UN Military Gender Advocate of the Year Award. That is correct. We have discussed. She is serving with UN interim forces in Lebanon, UNIFIL, that we have discussed, that provides security along the blue border, blue line, as the commander of the female engagement team. Yes, absolutely correct. Award was instituted by UN Security Council in 2016. No, it was not instituted by UN Security Council as such. Major Abhilasa Barak is third in recipient of this award. This is correct. So correct answer would be 1, 2 and 4. So B is the right option. Second is with reference to National Conference on Agriculture for Kharif campaign. India became world's largest producer of rice with a record production of over 154 million tons in 25-26. Yes, we have seen India has overtaken China, has become the largest producer of the rice today. India ranks first globally in wheat production. Is it correct? The answer is no. India currently ranks second as far as the wheat production is concerned. So second in wheat production. Agriculture Infrastructure Fund and PM ASA were highlighted as important interventions for strengthening the agriculture sector. This is absolutely correct. The two major focus areas of this particular conference was to ensure that AIF, Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, is properly instituted and enforced, basically used. A few years back, government has given a grant of almost, we can say, sanctioned a fund of almost 1 lakh crore. So that was largely to develop agricultural infrastructure, and PM ASA, as I told you, was mainly to ensure that the incomes, the aye of the farmers are secured, and that can be done through various methods such as, for example, MSP provision that you have, minimum support prices provisions that you have. These are enforced as such. So the correct answer would be 1 and 3. India ranks second as far as wheat production is concerned. So C should be the right option. Then coming to the third one, with reference to National Chambal Sanctuary, consider the following statement. It is protected area spread across Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. That is absolutely correct. Again, Chambal river originates from the Vindhya mountain ranges of Central Asia. It flows in the northern direction, and then the Chambal originates from Madhya Pradesh. That is where Vindhya range is located. Further, it flows across the state of Rajasthan, like Kota is a famous city, and then it turns in the eastward direction where it joins the river Yamuna. Right? So Yamuna is in Uttar Pradesh. So it also flows through Uttar Pradesh, and the place where Chambal river joins Yamuna is, if you want to remember, it is called as Hamirpur. Hamirpur is a small town city in UP. So yes, it is passing through Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. So almost 5,400 square kilometer of the area has been declared as a protected area. The sanctuary is an important habitat for critically endangered gharial. Critically endangered is important term. The answer is yes. IUCN classify gharial as critically endangered. That's why their security is very, very important, ensuring their their habitat is properly secured and they have enough food and the place to survive. So that is correct. Third, gharial is protected under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act. So all the animals which need protection are put under different schedules. So Schedule 1 is the highest level of protection that an animal can enjoy in India under Wildlife Protection Act. So animals such as lions, tigers, gharials, all of them are put under Schedule 1. The reason is because gharial is critically endangered. Other animals also have faced, we can say, a dwindling population due to the poaching related threat. So correct answer would be all three. D, 1, 2 and 3. All three statements are correct in this case. That's all for this particular video. I hope you got gist of all the 5 important topics from this week of Geography and International Security Challenges. Thank you.